So here we are. You get to introduce yourself.
So I'm Lilian from Sober in Miami.
Very nice, very nice. So we followed each other for a while now,
Yeah.
and I wanted to talk to you about like the whole, like sober scene in Miami. I know it's like challenging for some people because
Yeah.
it's a lot. It's a lot.
Mhm.
So what can you, from your years or your time, what can you share with people of like that? What is that like?
Well, just from experiencing sobriety here in Miami, I could definitely say it's not something that's you come across really. Meeting people that are sober are very far and few. So that's kind of why I wanted to set up my little Instagram page and be a little bit more open to meeting other people in general. Anyone that was sober curious, or not sober at all, like it wouldn't matter. It was just about building community. But yeah, because of that being so far and few, like it was just something that I wanted to do.
Okay. And those are a lot of terms that, like, for people that maybe haven't explored the world of sobriety,
Mhm.
maybe they don't know, and maybe we can go in depth in that because those are
Mhm.
really good terms. So the first official question I sent you in a while ago was, what was the turning point that made you decide to get sober, and what approach did you take to make that would feel right for you?
Yes. So the rain is picking up.
The rain is in fact picking up, so we're gonna make a decision while we think on that answer. We could go under a tree.
We could
We could
under some shrubbery.
under some shrubbery of some sort, or we could stop. It's up to you.
I don't
And it's
know.
kind of cold.
Yeah.
What was the turning point that made you decide to get sober, and what approach did you take that felt right for you?
So the turning point was, I mean, just a lot of looking back um, at choices that I was making. No particular point in time, I would say. I think I had those moments quite, frequently here and there over the years, but never really took the approach um, to actually get sober. I would say, hey, like I'll get sober for like a week, or like I'll stop drinking. And that never really worked. And then finally I was like, you know what? Like this feels like the right time. Let's go ahead and see what this is all about. And just slowly, like baby steps, walked myself into it. And just all of a sudden I realized, hey, like I'm sober a month, I'm sober 3 months. Let's keep it pushing. We could do this for longer. I'm sorry, what was the other part of the question?
And what felt right for you? What approach felt
The
right for you?
approach that I took was very like on my own, um, which not a lot of people recommend to do, but that's what worked for me. A lot of podcasts related to sobriety that I would look for, YouTube videos, um, books. After a while, like that I downloaded TikTok after years of saying I'm not going to. I ended up doing it, and that also kind of helped because the community like became like more well known actually. So I was like, okay, cool. Like there's more people to kind of gauge this by. So yeah, that was it.
I think that's a really good way because when people go through that journey of like first saying, okay, my life could get better. There's these things that are going on that sometimes it's out of my control, and I can go and find a good way. And I respect that. Like, I come from the perspective of doing the 12-step program, but you know what? That worked for me. And I
Right.
think the most important thing is to respect each other and be like, yeah, this is
Mm-hmm.
what worked for you.
Yeah.
And then we can build on that. And
Exactly.
I think your page on Instagram is really good for that reason because it can bring those two types of communities together
Mm-hmm.
and really just keep supporting each other. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's what's important at the end of the day. And it really goes along with the second question. So many, like, what actually goes piggybacks on what I said. So many people follow the traditional recovery programs, but you found your own way. What are some key habits, mindsets, or support systems that helped you succeed?
Hmm. Key mindset. I feel like at any point in time, you have like an itch that kind of goes along with going out and like different environments. So, a mindset of mine was very much like that whole keeping that community open would kind of allow me to see different perspectives and keeping that mindset open
Mm.
regardless of like where I'm at with my sobriety. So a lot oftentimes was like, just keeping the right company or like making friends out of the blue, like those kinds of things were really helpful to me. And they don't speak so much to like physically being sober, but more of like the person and like who you want to be moving forward, if that makes sense. So,
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it definitely has to do with that, finding your like community, finding people that are there for you. And it's just all about just keep talking to people whenever you have something going on in your life. It's always good to just have that support with someone that you really trust and that's there for you.
yeah.
And that's actually good because the third question goes with, how did your personal relationships change as you transitioned from a healthier lifestyle, and what boundaries or support systems helped you maintain it?
My lifestyle kind of remained the same, I will say, funny enough. Again, like I was someone who was constantly like um trying to like go to different events. I liked going out, I liked dancing, I liked going to concerts. Like those are my passions in a way. So I would still do them, whether alone or like with people that I would meet that were also like sober curious. Um, but yeah, like those kind of things didn't quite change too much. But
It's interesting because I visited some states where, the nightlife or I don't know, like just let's say in Miami is it's kind of very similar to like New York and California and
yeah.
like in Los Angeles in a way, where you one day you say, oh, randomly, oh, there's this random dance party about, I don't know, like some decade, like disco or whatever, and it's like something very niche and you could
Yeah.
just find it in Miami.
Yeah.
And I've noticed now that a lot of venues have opted to mocktails,
Hmm.
ways to they can include the sober crowd,
Yeah, yeah.
because the sober crowd, like you said, we like to dance, like we
Yeah.
like to
We're
go
still
to, we're
human.
still human, we still like to enjoy our time,
Yeah.
and not only just that, but it's like those positive experiences,
Mhm.
even though there are in those environments which some people within the sober community and 12-step programs and everything, they're like, you
Mhm.
can't go there anymore because X, Y, and Z. But the
Right.
reality is that you can't just do that for a long time. That's been my hottest
Mhm.
take for the longest
Mhm.
time. Because if you don't go to those places, let's say you have a wedding, right? Or
Yeah.
let's say you have some big event with who you're working with, like there's
Mhm.
gonna be those what's it called, like those one, like
Yeah,
the
the needs. Yeah,
temptations.
you well, not the needs. Yes, it's the stations where was the word. Yeah, you can't suppress yourself.
You can't
Yeah.
suppress yourself
Mhm.
forever, and I think what kind of keeps going along that line is like for some people they're able to learn and be like, this will be my one drink, right? This will be
Mhm.
one. And for some
Mhm.
people maybe they will have that, and maybe they can't just do one,
Right.
but
Right.
it's also respecting that. And I think that's the
Mhm.
hot take within the sober community,
Yeah.
because within I see it through the perspective of the 12-step programs, they kind of like, they don't let you even get close to giving you a chance with that, you
Right.
know what I mean?
Right.
So
Mhm.
that's a hot take. I have some hot takes. I've seen it
No.
all.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's what I often come back to is having these conversations just opens yourself up to different mindsets, a different outlook on sobriety itself. Because yeah, like you mentioned, like you can't, if you're stopping yourself from physically going into an environment where it's there, you're not going to really grow from where you started.
Yeah.
So I also think, like you had mentioned, like going out, some people do cater to the whole sobriety aspect of things now. But when I first was getting sober and I was still going out, I would notice like mocktails were not really like even on the menu.
Mhm.
And then if I found one spot that did have it and it was like exclusively, it would say mocktails, I was like, whoa, taking a picture of this because this is wild to me. But at first, like I would go to a bar and I'd be like, "Can you make me a mocktail?" They're like, "So juices?" And I'm like, yeah, sure. Put
Yeah.
some juices together. That works."
Right? And so this is where question 4 really comes in. So
Mhm.
Miami has a big drinking culture. How do you navigate social situations now? What advice can you give to those who want to make a similar change?
Hmm. Advice. I don't really know if I could give any. I mean, like I said, I think from just having these conversations, being open, that's one thing that I'll never deter myself from is when I was first going out again, like I keep bringing it back because it still happens. If I introduce myself to someone, it's not the first thing I'll say, like, hey, I'm sober, or given the environment, maybe,
Mhm.
but it's something that like I'll bring into the conversation because you never know, right?
Right.
Like they may be struggling or thinking about it and they never really wanted to take the steps or thought of taking those steps towards it or even entertaining the idea, what have you. Because I've had those conversations before, and I think that's maybe my advice is just being open, being honest, and making
Yeah.
friends along the way and building that community.
And building that community.
Hmm.
It's really important you say that because at first when I was in the time of my life where I was really struggling and really didn't know that if sobriety was even going to be a choice,
Hmm.
then I was like, I would feel kind of embarrassed if people asked me if I would stop drinking, like then, like that old
Mm.
mindset I had.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I wish I could tell myself then that it's okay, like nobody really cares if you drink or not,
Right,
and
right.
nobody really cares if you just leave a little wine there and nobody drinks it. Like for me that would be like big deal, like, oh, would people notice that I didn't finish my
Yeah,
drinks? Like that
yeah.
was a mindset I had before. And going through this, talking to people who are sober in and out of programs, now I understand that there's no pressure, that whole pressure within the whole Miami scene, that you have to be taking shots, you have to be going to bottomless brunch. It doesn't really, people don't care. People who don't have that need to continuously drink,
Hmm.
they don't understand that, the drink can just stay there, uh or there's that, kind of like longing for the drink, and
Hmm.
sometimes it really sucks because it's a feeling that doesn't really go away,
Hmm.
and then you're only thinking about that, and it's, I don't know how to like further describe it, but it just, these
Yeah.
are good conversations to have that open up the discussion that at the end of the day nobody really cares. You didn't
Hmm.
finish it, you did it,
Hmm.
it is what it is,
Hmm.
and it'll be okay.
Yeah.
I wish I could have told myself that, my younger self.
Yeah, same. But that also comes from in my world, like
Hmm.
growing up in Miami, you start drinking at such an early
Yeah.
age and like it's so common, it's around you so early. Um and that pressure was there from that early age because it's like the only way to kind of like have fun out here in a weird way and like it carries on. So it's like that weird like that pressure is all in your head. It's all like on how people perceive you and view you that
Right.
you're not even like fully developed enough to kind of think like, hey, I'm my own person, I can make my own choices. But as we grow older, like obviously luckily like you you form these opinions about yourself and like you can grow out of them and
Yeah.
just yeah.
I think that culture plays a big role in
Hmm.
like the drinking culture as well, because I can speak from like my culture. Like would have been very helpful for me, like to have a perspective of like, it's okay. Like
Hmm.
there shouldn't be any pressure, or you learn little by little. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's just in within my, because I know within the Hispanic Latino culture it's so big, where
Yeah.
so many different factors. You can't just say like, the Cuban culture, the Ecuadorian culture are the same. No, they're
Yeah.
so different because, growing up in Miami, not growing up in Miami. And I think in general it's just like a big thing to understand that the way you grew up, the way, if you went to when you went to high school, or even middle school, some people start drinking that early. How did that go for you? Did you have pressure from your peers? Did you not have pressure from your peers? Like
Hmm.
I started drinking a little later, but it still was the same outcome at the end.
Right, right. Yeah, so
Yeah.
sometimes you it's not even that so much.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, it's again curious to have these conversations and like kind of like see where people have been at different places in their lives because it all culminates and it ends up being what brings you to that sobriety.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, for me, it was a lot of seeing my parents drinking, having fun, partying. And like, I don't even know if that played so much into it, but it was obviously for me more like the high school, like friends and things like that aspect of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so good to see two different points of view, because it is so different and everybody goes through it so differently.
Hmm.
And before we get to question 5, I think it'll be really good to touch on some of those terms that they're used in the sober community. So
Hmm.
there's sober curious. I think
Hmm.
there's I don't know if there's more. I think that's it, right? Or if I'm not mistaken. I
Could
can edit
be.
it.
I mean, some people are like, I'm Cali sober, Miami sober.
Yeah.
I've heard those thrown around so much, and I'm like, listen, I mean, whatever you want to call it, just like for me, it's more of like just knowing exactly where you're at and actually like verbalizing it. Like, hey, I don't smoke, or I smoke and I drink, or I drink and I don't smoke. Like,
Mm,
whatever it may be, but just verbalizing it, I think is like key.
right.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
That's a good. That those are really good way to like put it, because
Hmm.
and more terms could be used that we may or may not know. You never
Yeah.
know. You know.
Yeah.
So question 5 is kind of like summarizing everything. So looking back,
Mhm.
what was the most unexpected or valuable lesson that you learned throughout this process?
Hmm. Most valuable, I would say, is just in general, like community, just making friends, acquaintances, like being able to have the conversations. I think sometimes in sobriety, you can be very to yourself because you're not like, you're hanging around like these environments that sometimes can be a little bit like off-putting, in the sense where it's like it's a lot to handle, and so you may hide your sobriety. And the biggest takeaway for me has been like verbalizing it, being open, and like just putting it out there for yourself.
I agree. I think that's so powerful because not only is it just so you feel free, but it makes empowers you as a person.
100%.
And that's
Yeah.
like the whole point, because if you're not empowering yourself in whatever journey you take, whether it's
Mm,
sobriety, whether it's not, whether you're not ready, whatever it is, you
yeah.
don't, whatever you decide, I think at the end of the day you need to be sure of yourself. This is what you want to do with your life. You want to be
Hmm.
happy, you want to accomplish these goals. And all of us have different goals in many different ways that we want to attain.
Yeah.
And I think even though Miami may have this party scene and everything,
Mm.
it doesn't define us. It doesn't stop us from still wanting to go and enjoy it, still wanting
Hmm.
to do things that were fun, even though back then we were drinking, but now we can do it in a way where we can actually enjoy it,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Verbalizing it 100%, like it it empowers you, like you said. It will take you into environments that you didn't even think you could be in while not drinking, you
Yeah.
know? So,
And then this question's not in the questions I sent you, but it's more
mhm.
of like what do you want to do with your page, like the future of sober in Miami?
The goal has always been community, just making space for people that are sober and sober curious, or again, not even sober, and it may be like a passing thought, and
Hmm.
probably don't even like realize, hey, like I want to do something that's not drinking today, and like I want to hang out at the park, or I want to go like to a museum or whatever.
Right.
Those are the things that I was kind of putting together here and there, and that's always been the main goal, just community, making that space, meeting people, having acquaintances that, have that sober curiosity, and are just willing to share as well.
Perfect. I think that's like such a good way of like really encapsulating your page, your goals for it, and and it goes with your own personal values and how you're going about it. And I'm so excited for this. And anytime you share your posts, I'll share them because
Mhm.
you never know. People will go and really embrace that sense of community, which is
Yeah.
really nice that
Yeah.
you're doing.
Thank you.
Yeah, so
Thanks.
thank you again for doing this. And people check her out, Sober in Miami. And also your other Insta page. Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. So it was just sober in Miami, and then I did something for like the event. So hopefully I'll get more things going soon. But yeah, I'll post everything so that everyone can join.
Yay. Okay, awesome.